I'm your host, Janine Charles Foray. And if you are seeing me on your screen, please check in and tell us where you are from. Where are you tuning in from? Yesterday we did the Soca Island call. We're doing it again today. I've always wanted to do this on a stage or otherwise. Here's my virtual platform. So we're going to start with anybody from Barbados, anybody from Grenada. I'm kidding. What you can do is just put in the chat section, on the comment section on the right hand side. Just tell us where you're tuning in from. We always love to hear from you. Of course, today's hosts and organizers of the event, the Fashion Arch. We also have our sponsors, Youth Business Trinidad and Tobago, the Global Entrepreneurship Week Trinidad and Tobago for their support of this event, TCJ Events, Caribbean Posh, and Black Collar Creative. Today's theme, of course, is reinforcing resilience for Caribbean creative entrepreneurs. So we are on to our first panel session for the day. And this panel is going to focus on how digital marketing and content creation affects the success of the creative entrepreneur. It is being moderated by entrepreneur Jenna Neves. And let me tell you about Jenna, very exciting. Jenna has over 10 years experience in the field of marketing, advertising, event management, social media, and communications. She holds a BA in Media and Communications with a Public Relations specialization from the University of the West Indies, Mona, Jamaica, and a Master's in Marketing from the Arthur Lockjack Graduate School of Business, UW St. Augustine. As a serial entrepreneur, she is now the owner of two businesses, JN and Associates Janitorial Services and Gen X Management. At Gen X Management, she connects Caribbean influencers and talent to brands, and brands to their audiences. She is also trained in radio broadcasting and is a podcast host. Welcome, Jenna, and welcome to our panelists.
Thank you so much, Janine. Only hearing that, I realized, wow, I do a lot. But
you do a lot.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here, and I'm so honored to actually introduce our panelists. I'm very excited to speak to them on digital marketing, something that's very close to my heart. And so I'm going to go ladies first. I'm going to take it away. I'm going to introduce to you Ricolia Phillip. And Ricolia Phillip is a consumer content creator, award-winning writer with close to 10 years of working in content in several niches, including digital media, entertainment, lifestyle, travel, and tourism. She got her start hosting her YouTube channel, Ricolia's Top 5, before becoming the face of Loop TT, where she served as journalist, host, and producer. She also lent her skills to serve as digital content manager, the destination brand Visit Tobago. She's currently channeling her years of experience into her own content marketing agency, Sister Isle Digital, and is also editor-in-chief of the women's lifestyle brand, Ricolia the Magazine. Welcome, Ricolia.
Hello. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good morning. I'm really excited to see you. Can I tell you, I've been following you from RT5.
Really?
I remember when you had that whole, you cut your hair.
Yeah.
And I've been peeping your growth over the years. It's a lot of years. So
You're making up my age, but yeah.
So welcome, and I'm very excited to get into this chat. Next, we have Christopher Gracie. And Christopher Gracie is on a mission to push the Caribbean forward. He designs strategies and manages projects with global and local brands in the Caribbean and Northern Europe. He also designs and facilitates workshops in digital marketing strategy and innovation for executives and entrepreneurs. Trained in the delivery of authentic business education, he has delivered courses for EU-funded projects and scores of organizations in the Caribbean. So Christopher, welcome. I think your mic is muted, Christopher.
Oh God, I said thank you for that welcome. Hi Jenna, hi Ricolia, and hi everyone tuning in. Nice to be here.
Hope everyone is feeling well. So we're gonna get straight into it. I think digital marketing and content marketing is such a buzzword, and a lot of people, I don't know if they really understand what it means. So I'll go with Christopher. Can you give us your definition of content marketing and digital marketing?
Content content really is everything that comes out of a brand. To be fair, content includes film production and lower quality video production, long form and short form, written content, audio content, anything that comes out of a brand that really represents the brand's value system is what I'd like to think content is. We could go even deeper and talk about content, including speeches and
Yeah.
whatever tells the story of a particular brand or a particular business encompasses its content. So strategic content really has to do with directing that story, with identifying what is the story we want to tell and what tactics are we going to use, what pieces of content are we going to use to help tell that story. Um, when Ricolia and I spoke earlier, we agreed that we would want to both sort of tackle every question together because we
Yes.
felt as though the questions were very much looked at from both angles. So I don't want to hog the answer
No,
entirely.
definitely
I really want to
we're
give us
coming
some.
to her. We're coming to so Ricolia. We're all about creative entrepreneurs.
Mm.
What, in your opinion, how does content affect the creative entrepreneur?
Well, it's like the core of what they do,
Mm-hmm.
because you are basically, it's more than the product or it's more than the service that you're offering. As
Mm-hmm.
Chris said, you are adding an extra element of storytelling and value in what you're offering. And just to kind of take it a step further, as a creative entrepreneur, I always tell people that it's a lot more than just saying, I have this, I have that, buy from me. You need
Right.
to make a connection with your audience. And in the time that we're in right now, our attention span is nil. And people right now are trying to consume in a way that adds value for them. It answers a particular question. It solves a particular, or it's an answer to a particular problem that they have or a need that they have. So I think that as creative entrepreneurs, we need to find a way to make it, yes, a bit about us, but
Mm-hmm.
also how we can make it more about our audience as well. And how we can make that connection with them, because in the long term, they'll always keep coming back. They will have that loyalty with you. And as one of the past panelists indicated, it's going to be less of a sell at the end of the day. You are solving a problem for them. It's a lot more personalized because they feel as if you are speaking directly to them, even though it is a lot more than just them alone. But I think that is something that we definitely have to leverage as creatives and creative entrepreneurs specifically. It's less about us and a lot more about them, and trying to find that balance in, well, what can I do to solve their problem or fill a need for them?
Right. Christopher, I'll come to you in terms of authenticity. And I think many times with creating content, people will look at their competition. They would look at what probably they probably look to the US. And you've worked with Caribbean and different countries and continents. How can we as Caribbean people make our content more relatable, authentic? What steps do you think a creative entrepreneur should do?
Well, I think certainly starting um, with why we need to have content that is authentic is very important.
Yeah.
This statement, your vibe attracts your tribe. I just said that a couple hours ago. It's really important for us to be able to connect with our community in a way that is meaningful. Seth Godin has a book called Tribes. I encourage that as an easy read for all of us here, where he talks about how important it is to show up as yourself so that people can connect with what you have to say. So we're looking at creating content that reflects who we are and what our brand stands for and what our brand stands against, so that when our community makes a decision to be part of that movement, it's based on something that is meaningful to them as well. So that's the first thing. We want to connect with people who truly care about what we care about. The
Yeah.
how really is not necessarily about jumping on Instagram live, um, and putting on having a conversation that's not that's not staged, because staging is not the opposite of authenticity. It's
Right.
okay to have high quality authenticity. It's okay to have staged authenticity to a great extent, but that authenticity really is about examining what you stand for as a brand and examining what you
Mm-hmm.
stand against, so that you can stand on the soapbox, I guess. You can stand on the shoulders of that value system, and speak about things that really matter. A lot of times on social media, we spend time creating content like "Good morning, it's Monday," or "I hate Mondays," and "Happy Hump Day," which really has nothing to do with who we are as a brand. And
Right.
what we want to be able to do is, when we establish that foundation of value system, we want to create content that comes out of that foundation. If we know
Right.
that we stand for, as simple as we stand for empowering women, for
Mm-hmm.
example, then there are a lot of themes that you can come up with associated with putting women forward, having conversations about what it means to be empowered women. For example, that's just a simple example. And so now you can create bits of content that have to do with empowering women, as opposed to trying to ride every trend that
Yeah.
comes your way. Trends have value and trends are important. Trends do move you in a particular direction. To give you another author, David
Oh,
Meerman
makes
Scott,
sense.
wrote a book about growth hacking. I can't remember the name of the book, but if you Google David Meerman Scott, there's content on YouTube on growth hacking that's really valuable to help you ride trends, to help you move things along. But in
Mm-hmm.
you want to ride trends that have to do with your value system. That's
Yeah.
really what's going to allow you to align with a community that you care about. Just because Miley Cyrus did a hump with Robin Thicke in the MTV Music Video Awards 5 years ago doesn't mean that that's the conversation you need to have.
Right.
You may want to ride the trends that are relevant and valuable to your community, because your community is your community, because they care about what you care about.
Mhm.
I
And
just
you
want
know,
to I just want to piggyback on what Chris is saying, and I think
Right.
that is the missing link when a lot of people are putting on content. People being, whether it's creative entrepreneurs, small businesses, whatever the case may be, I've recognized that a lot of people, they know they need to create content. They know they need
Yeah.
to be on these platforms. They know they need to implement digital and content marketing or whatever the case may be. But a lot of them, miss that simple question, like, what are we trying to accomplish? Who are we trying to reach? And what are we trying to get out of this at the end of whatever it is we're trying to do? And something I always tell people as well, especially clients, I don't believe in posting for posting's sake. I don't believe in
Yeah.
creating content for content's sake, because it's not going to resonate, it's not going to connect, and it's just going to be added to the billions of pieces of content that already exist. And like I said
Yeah.
earlier, people have already learned how to tune out. So it's a matter of, not to sound cliche, cutting through the noise. And Chris made another point earlier that I think is very valuable as well, in terms of, instead of looking to what other people are doing. Yes, you can look to others for inspiration. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's a matter, one thing that we need to focus on, especially as Trimbagonians and businesses around the region, is what stories are not being told, what kind of content does not exist. I recognized, in just to kind of bring it back to me just for a quick second, I recognize that where some of my strengths have laid has been in talking about things and creating content around things that we don't talk about. And
Right.
that, I think, is what stood out the most for a lot of people. And no matter what it is you are trying to put forward, whatever conversations you're trying to have, I think the main thing is, what conversations are we not having? Yes, the US has its own culture, its own world and everything. But we have our own dynamic locally and regionally as well. And we can look to outside for inspiration in certain ways, like, maybe strategy, maybe using a particular tactic or whatever the case may be. But I think we definitely need to double down on how we can continue to tell our stories, and how we can do it in, as Chris said, in the most authentic way as possible. I think in doing it that way, will connect a lot more than just, well, happy hump day and another cliche saying or term or phrase.
Ricolia, for you, I know that you were the face of Loop TT, you were the face of your own personal brand. What advice would you give creative entrepreneurs who are probably the face of their brand? How can they stay, relevant, authentic in the midst of all this competition?
Right. Two things. One, I try a lot. I'm not afraid to an extent, I tend to get in my head a bit. I'm not going to lie, I'm human, but I'm not afraid to try certain things. So I said I wanted to start my own lifestyle brand with Ricolia, the magazine. And it's because I wanted to create a specific space, in that realm. I think that not being afraid to experiment. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it's still experience that can lend to something else.
Right.
As well as I think that you have to limit how much you look at the competition, the quote unquote competition. Yes, you can look to see, who else is in your space and in your lane and all of that. But when you focus like daily and weekly, like what are they doing? And maybe I should try it this way and this and the other. You start to lose focus on what you are trying to do. And then it ends up being a situation where you're just trying to play catch up with this entity or these, individuals or brands or whatever the case may be. So the way I see it too is that it's important to just know who's in your space. And as, again, one of the other panelists said earlier, whether or not it can lend for collaboration or whatever the case may be, just being cognizant of who else is around you is important. But at the same time, you should focus more on what you can offer, and as well as differentiation. I'm not the only one who does content and digital.
Right.
I'm not the only one that offers, social media services. I'm not the only one who has a lifestyle brand with, what I'm trying to push. But I try to make what I do different, which is specifically why Sister Isle Digital is exclusively a content marketing brand. It's not social media. It's not digital. I recognize that there's so many people who have who are working in those spaces. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think that the more options people have, the better. I try to focus more on how I can build myself and establish myself as an authority in my lane.
Right.
And I think that is something that everyone should try to do. How can you set yourself apart, even if you are working alongside other people who are doing what you're doing?
Exactly. I love that. So you have one question already, and the questions have started to roll in. So I'm going to let the question come up on the screen. Okay. So how does telling your story in marketing work for entrepreneurs who are in food service? So this is somebody who's in food service. They want to know, how can they tell a story with that particular service and product? Because it's both. So Christopher, you have any
Sure. There are a number of stories you could tell in any industry that you're in. One particular story. Now, again, we go back to that value system. So let's say you've examined who you are as a food service provider, and you understand what is the real value that you're bringing to your customer. You really understand that maybe it's taste, maybe it's a customer service experience, maybe it's the relationship that you have with the customers, whatever is the real differentiator that you have to bring that real value. You can find a story there. Maybe it's a story from a customer's perspective. Maybe it's a story from a customer experience moment that is happening. What you want to be able to do is document. You want to be able to identify what is the value that I'm bringing, and how do I showcase this particular bit of value in this piece of content. So I started off by saying there are a lot of stories to be told. So there's not one brand story that is required at any given time. You want to pinpoint for this piece of content or for this content series, this is the core value that I'm highlighting, or this is the value that I'm bringing. And I want to just differentiate between my core values and the value proposition that I am offering to my customer. And you can pull from either one of those to be able to demonstrate or articulate what it is you want to articulate or demonstrate. So just to recap some examples, customer testimonials about the food taste, if that's the case, or the quality of the food, or the relationship, or the experience, or maybe it's the process of making the food that goes into it that makes it such a high quality product, or maybe it's the care that goes into it to ensure that if, for example, you're creating high nutrition value in your food, to ensure that you create that care, or maybe it's the outcome of the high nutrition value that can come from that. Maybe a customer over time. Remember when Subway created the story about this person who just ate Subway? Even though I find that kind of hard to believe because bread. But but anyway, when they created that story about the outcome that took place from someone who only ate Subway or only ate Subway for this period of time. So there are a few stories that you want to get. The idea is core value or the value system that you're trying to create or establish.
Okay, Ricolia, I want to get into consistency and making that connection, because entrepreneurs, which was previously discussed, doing everything. They create any products, create any services, creating they want to do content, they are doing everything. And sometimes you would see that, okay, consistency is starting to lack, and then they're losing that connection. Can you reinforce or give us your insights on the importance of consistency?
It's everything. It's you need to show up in order for people to want to know who you are and have that connection. And I completely understand, especially if you are a team of one or a team of five, how in addition to other elements of the business, showing up online in whatever realm, can become a challenge. And this is also from personal experience as well. And I've seen it on both sides. I think the best way to show up and show up consistently is to plan ahead. And this might sound cliche, it might sound very basic or simple, but that small thing can go a very long way. So planning ahead, one, as well as you don't have to be everywhere all the time. This is also from personal experience. I tried it myself. When I'd established Sister Isle, I said, all right, well, I'm going to be on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. That's 5 channels. And those 5 channels require their own individual amount of attention, engagement, because you have to engage with people in order to get that engagement as well. That's just how social media works. I dived right into the whole YouTube thing. I'm like, yeah, well, I've done video before, so I can do this now. And as it stands, and I'm saying this, for anyone who's listening and watching, in terms of, this is just how it is. We are human. This is life. I have all of 1 video on my YouTube channel because I underestimated how much work and effort goes into creating the content and the marketing and everything else. So I decided, you know what? YouTube is on a brief pause. Let me focus in the spaces that I can, which is why I've doubled down on my Instagram marketing. But at the same time, it's not the only form of marketing that I engage with. So it's very important to know, all right, where your strengths lie, 1, 2, where your audience is as well. Because you'll be really spinning top in mud if you're trying to be everything for everyone and they're not there. If you are a business and the raging trend right now is you need to be on TikTok. But if you don't understand TikTok, and not just TikTok, the dance trends, but if you don't understand TikTok for business, which is a completely different lane in itself, you are wasting time on TikTok. And it extends to Instagram for business, Facebook for business, Twitter for business. There's a huge difference between being on these social platforms or any of these platforms for fun versus strategically being on these platforms to optimize yourself for the right audience in order to ensure that they convert into sales. So if you do decide that you want to be on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, whatever the case may be, I would highly recommend planning ahead, so at least planning at least a month's worth of content ahead of time, determine which days are best for you and your business, especially which days your audience is going to be online, because
Right.
you are creating content for other people. It's not just for yourself. If you, whether you decide you want to be online every day, 3 days a week, 5 days a week, 4 days a week, whatever the case may be, plan out your content. I would also go a bit deeper and say create content pillars. So if you are using the food industry example, you can create, let's say, 3 pillars that you always want to focus on, whether it's the actual like food and like what goes into the food prep, whether it's your another pillar can be brand story, or the history of the brand, you consistently telling, creating pieces around that. Another one can be around the customer experience. So there's 3 pillars. You already know, all right, well, if I'm posting 3 times a week, those 3 days are going to speak to those 3 pillars. We can break it down from there. What types of content am I going to put out? Is it visual? Is it video? Whatever the case may be. If you know that it takes X amount of time to create and produce a particular kind of video, this is where the planning comes in. And it's just a matter of, once you have all of your content in your content bank ahead of time, it's just a matter of scheduling it out. And that eases you up to focus on other elements of the business in that said month. It might sound like a lot in the earlies, but once you get into that rhythm, it becomes like second nature. And another thing I want to add is that, especially in the time that we're in, the pandemic has given us so much leeway, especially as businesses, where we don't have to rely and say, well, all right, well, I don't have the money to pay a professional photographer and a professional videographer to do X, Y, and Z right now. Of course, it's important, but if you have a quality phone, you can do certain things yourself. You can put, your turn your camera around and talk to your audience as well, and have that authentic connection with them. So I don't think people should continue to delay and say, I don't have this, I don't have that, before they actually act. I always say, that you have to take several steps before you get to the mountain, right? And people buy into that level of authenticity, and they see that growth with you, and they grow with you, and they want to stay with you along the journey.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And as you're speaking about, as you mentioned, the pandemic, I didn't want to bring it up, but you brought it up. So I want to ask Christopher, the pandemic to me showed me that perhaps, I don't know if it's just in Trinidad or the Caribbean, you saw that we were behind. We were behind, and we had to play catch up. What are your views for the future with digital marketing as we go into, I don't know when this pandemic will end, but in the next couple of years? Because we've been seeing a lot of changes. A lot of companies, they started to get apps, and they started to really be active on social media, things that they were never doing before. Within the last 2 years, what do you think is the future for digital marketing? What can we look forward to, in your opinion?
I think digital marketing, well, I think Caribbean people are extremely innovative and very, very creative. So I think that we will find ourselves having transactions and having digital marketing experiences that are unique to us. Certainly, we will begin to see a lot more content being consumed online. We've already seen that. We'll see conferences happening more and more online, classrooms happening online, where we've already begun to see that, meetings. I mean, with Facebook's, with Meta now in place, we're gonna be really running very quickly, I think, into the use of virtual reality. Very soon, we're gonna see a very fast reduction in the cost of virtual reality hardware and equipment for us to be able to tap into that very easily. I also think that entrepreneurs are going to find very interesting ways to sell their content online, to sell their products online, to create and generate demand online. We're gonna NFTs are very topical, and we're gonna see people creating value for their online content in a new way. I think we're going to see a lot of live interactions of things happening online. With respect to online commerce, I expect to see the barriers breaking down very, very quickly. We have a lot of big companies with large financial backing coming into the game and really trying trying to break down walls that we've had with online commerce. And so once entrepreneurs have begun to feel as though there is not a barrier for us to do actual financial transaction management, which I think has really begun to happen, and the floodgates will open, we're going to see a lot of online delivery happening, a lot of interesting ideas. For example, I worked with this company called Whoosh last year. I don't know if y'all checked it out. Look at it, whoosh.tt. They're like an Uber. Whoosh. They're like an Uber for delivery things.
For delivery,
which
yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen that happening in the States. I can't think of a company in Europe or in Sweden, where I am right now, that if I wanted to simply deliver a package from Diego Martin to Arima, I can call Whoosh and Whoosh it. And I think that's why I say Caribbean people are really innovative and really smart. We will not be following in the footsteps of anyone. I think we will be creating world-class innovations on our own. And I think that we will be creating solutions for problems that are uniquely Caribbean, and we will be using digital platforms in very, very strategic manners. The last thing I want to say about that is I think Caribbean people are highly educated as well. So we're seeing a lot of strategic interventions. So it's not like flukes. It's a lot of strategic, well thought out, well planned interventions to be able to capitalize on the needs of particular communities. And finally, I think payment systems, online payment systems is interesting, but we will see a lot of payment with phone credit and different sort of innovative ways to do trade online, because that's where business is. So I'm very much looking forward to that. I did, however, want to just jump really quickly on Ricolia's point on consistency, just to add really quickly that consistency is psychologically important for trust creation in any relationship, whether it's a relationship between a brand and a person, or a relationship between two people. And so we want to look at consistency from two angles. Yes, it's showing up in a consistent manner. So we expect, to simplify it very much, we expect to see you on Saturdays, you show up on Saturdays. But also consistency of your tone, and consistency of your voice, and consistency of your brand's personality is also going to bring about a lot of trust. If you can develop an authentic personality, and I see a question in the comments that might come up about how to explore unique brand identity. That one that's on screen now. So if you forgive me for diving into this one. We want to craft strategic brand identities, and there are tools to do that, like Capfera's brand identity prism. Google it, please. And the brand pyramid. You use those tools to actually structure and articulate how your brand will show up. And so if you're passing on your brand to be managed on a social media platform by a social media manager, for example, they have an articulated structure that they can work with to help understand how your brand represents itself. Is it a caring tone, or is it a nurturing tone, or is it a more fast-paced, witty type of tone? And if you're able to use those slight nuances to consistently show up and have relationships with your brand over time across all platforms, that consistency will breathe greater trusting relationships
Something
with your brand.
Even to piggyback on what Chris said, there's the tone, yes, and something I think that a lot of people miss is even the visuals around it. And I don't mean like a picture of you, myself, or you, but the visuals, the colors, the shades, that are associated with your brand and your product or service. I forget who said it off the top of my head, but it was the phrase was basically some of the best branding that exists is you showing up without having to say a word. There's certain brands internationally where you see certain colors, you see certain symbols, and immediately this is X, Y, and Z. Of course, they would have a bigger reach and all of that, but you also want to have that level of, again, consistency. There's nothing wrong with experimentation, but it should not be too strayed where people, can't really pinpoint who you are. And as Chris said, it is very psychological as well. If you are showing up consistently in all these different ways, they build that level of trust in you as well. Right. And, you show up more as an authority, and, you own this particular realm based on your brand identity and tone and everything else that goes along with it.
Okay. Before we wrap up, I do have a question for both of you. Can you give a example of any Caribbean brands that you think are doing great at consistency, authenticity, and value in digital marketing?
Ricolia, I'll definitely let you go first.
Um, just on the top of my head, and this is someone that I spoke about recently on my platforms. Bene Carib is definitely one that jumps out. For those who don't know, Bene Carib is a sustainable women's line for the Caribbean, and outside of the visuals and the consistency with the posting and all of that, she has been able to seamlessly integrate her company's brand values, which is sustainability and quality made products, into her brand story. And that shows up almost in every post. So when you see Bene Carib, you immediately, outside of like the visually vibrant colors and the patterns that she has in her products, you immediately associate her with sustainability, with being conscious about sustainable fashion and all those things around that. So that to me is the example that just jumped out to me immediately, and I think that is something that if you have a business, you should ensure it stands out. When people hear about your brand, what comes to mind immediately, and what do you want your brand to represent, and what values do you want to showcase in your branding and your digital and your content and all of that?
Yeah,
Christopher?
I think it's okay for me to use another fashion industry example, given the creative context that we're in. Wanya is a brand that I really,
Yeah.
really, really love.
Definitely.
Wanya's brand really came from a place of representing and defending survivors of sexual violence. And she not only has created a fashion product that really speaks about resilience and with the Black Madonna, but then she also has created a set of content, including workshops and fireside chats and psychotherapy and a whole bunch of things like that to support her community. So it's really been about creating a brand that exists for the benefit of our community that just happens to sell clothes. And I think that really is an excellent example of that. And of course, the sustainability factor comes in as well.
Yeah.
I think she does a really, really great job.
And when you do
Okay.
something like that, it makes it a lot easier for people to come to you. You don't have to push too much because they're already naturally attracted to you.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
exactly. Agreed. Okay, guys, unfortunately, we've come to the end of our session. I thank you so much for giving all your gems and insights and knowledge to our entire audience and to me as well. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
Thanks for having me. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Jenna, Ricolia, and Chris for that fantastic panel. Our first panel of the day, of course, the topic, how digital marketing and content creation affects the success of the creative entrepreneur. We heard from Ricolia, who encouraged us to make a connection with your audience. People are consuming in a way that adds value or solves a problem. So whatever you do, you have to make it more about your audience. What can you do to solve their problem? What can you do to be emotionally resonant with how they feel and what they need? How do you set yourself apart? Even if you're among others doing the same thing, consistency is key. Select the channels that are relevant to you. Sometimes you don't have to be on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. Sometimes things would be more relevant to your brand, and establish your content pillars. We also heard from Chris. We need to have content that is authentic. Your vibe attracts your tribe, Chris said. What does your brand stand for, and what does your brand stand against? I had hoped that someone might ask a question like, what do you stand against? But in the examples that both panelists gave at the end, you kind of see how that would fall into play. We also had any brands that, you were admiring, they shared with us Bene Carib and Wanya. So thank you so much.